Hi, my name is Julia Steinberger. Welcome to the CLIMACT Joint Union and EPFL Ideas and Actions seminar series. And this is the 5th seminar, and we have 2 fantastic speakers, so I'm really looking forward to that. We're just gonna tell you a bit about CLIMACT and what we do, and then we will get right to it. So what is CLIMACT? So CLIMACT is currently approved and official, although we're trying to get started. Joint EPFL and UNIL Center to highlight climate research and teaching and to really raise ambitions around climate action across the 2 campuses and beyond. And the seminars are every second Monday, more or less, between 12 and 1, and we try to have speakers on 2 different topics. And so the goal is to have cross-cutting discussions. And we really don't want just to present past research or people to come in and say, hey, I wrote a great paper. It's try to present ideas that will take us forward beyond what is currently being done. Logistics and conduct. Be a nice person, try to stay muted, but otherwise, if you have a question, we'd really love for you to say it in person. The seminars are recorded and will be posted online, but the discussions are not recorded. And so if you want to ask a question, just either raise your hand or write it into the chat or put a star into the chat or speak if we're not seeing you because things get complicated when there's a lot of people. The seminars are bilingual, English and French, so everybody should use their own language. We've had French speakers and English speakers and questions in both French and English, so that is how we will continue to go. We've had very interesting seminars so far that are available to watch on YouTube if you haven't seen them in person, and from a mix of people from UNIL, EPFL, and practice, so as well as researchers beyond both universities. So I really encourage you to have a look. And today we are going to be hearing from Michael Lehning and Jean-Pierre Danthine, and each speaker will speak for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, or maybe slightly before the 15 minutes, Thanos will ring his bell to let them know that it's time to wrap up and they just have a couple of minutes left. And then we'll have a maximum amount of time for questions. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Michi, who's a professor in environmental science and engineering at EPFL, and who is going to speak to us about his newly successful acquired project, congratulations, called Sweet Edge, how to boost new installations of decentralized renewable energy generators. And really looking forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, welcome everybody also from my side. It's my great pleasure to present this new project there. It hasn't started yet, but it has been approved and funded. And so this is a good time to start a discussion on it. And the reason why we want to present this is because I think it's a typical program project, such as we would like to have in CLIMACT, or we would like to have many of those in CLIMACT. Thanks also for the nice introduction, Julia. And we will now go and talk a little bit about the Sweet Edge project. So the team is, it's a 15 research team, so it's very interdisciplinary. You can read some names here. The important part is that it really covers the full breadth of interdisciplinary research on energy change, from politics to finances, markets, but also the natural sciences and looking at the renewable energy potential, which is closer to my subject, and so I will spend some time on that. But interdisciplinary is one thing, but it's also applied in the sense that it has its aim to put the foot on the ground and to bring the energy change forward. And for that, we do have partners out there in the industry, quite a lot of partners. We have 20 implementation partners, but also in addition, 42 support partners, so partners that we had contact with already in the writing of the proposal and that thought that this is a worthwhile idea. Now, what is our motivation? Very similar to CLIMACT, what we would like to achieve is something that generates action. So Sweet Edge addresses the need for accelerated change in the energy sector to reach the sustainability goals. The sustainability goals such as they have been voiced by the Swiss government and is in the plan. But very likely, very similar to what's happening on the climate side in general, also on the energy side, we are too slow. We are too slow with respect to the energy targets that have been formulated, and we can really say that Switzerland is not on track there. There's also, if you look at what's happening, and of course we all know that there are renewable energy installations happening. There is people that build solar PV on their roofs, and there is also increasingly a few larger plants. There is very marginal wind being installed, but even for those actions that do happen in Switzerland, there are large regional inequalities that also need to be addressed. And there is no clear plan for the emerging winter gap. Let's maybe therefore go to what is the Swedish Edge objective. It's a vision is that we fast track the growth of locally sourced, decentralized renewable energy in Switzerland. And for this, what we try to do there is to formulate implementation pathways for nearly or fully renewable Switzerland, and to ensure that by 2050, when this renewable energies should be working, that it's a system that technologically works, but also economically. So it's not only looking at the technical feasibility, it's also looking at how this will be positioned within the European markets. And therefore, or in order to achieve that, what we have done in this project is to particularly address activities towards the Swiss cities, the Midlands and the Alps, sort of acknowledging the way Switzerland is structured in terms of landscape units. Now, to go back down on earth is that we do propose 3 pilot and demonstration projects that I will also tell you a little bit more in detail. Now, the concept, therefore, of Swedish Edge is that we look at both the demand side and the potential for generation in the Swiss cities, the Midlands, and the Alps. What you can see here is, this is from my partner Evelina Trutnewitte, who is the co-PI in this project. What you can see here is for the Swiss landscape, the landscape units, what is classified as cities in black and Midlands in green and the Alps in gray. And what you can see clearly is that the cities, of course, have a very high demand on heat and electricity, but comparatively low own production. The Midlands, there is a more balanced situation, and it's especially with respect to solar and biomass, there's large potential of additional generation. The Alps are a little bit of an uncharted terrain in that respect, that we know that most of the hydropower comes from our mountains. But there's also quite some biomass, maybe not as easily accessible as in the Midlands, and there's potential for wind and solar. So what we would like to do is to use a push-pull concept and see, when we know that we should install more new renewable energy in Switzerland, and we also then realize that it's not happening, then we ask, why is it not happening? And we're trying to go in this push-pull that we say, okay, this is what we would like to have. We are realizing it's not happening. Why is it not happening? And is there anything we can do about it with respect to investigating the reasons and pointing out to solutions? And that concerns technologies, it concerns grids, but also policies, incentives, markets, and finances. So this is the interdisciplinary nature of that project, which we think is extremely important. This is organized in some work packages. We have a total of 10 work packages, where there's 3 work packages that present research on these units of the cities, the Midlands, or the Alps. And for every of these research work package, there's the corresponding demonstration, pilot and demonstration project, which I'm going to tell you in a little bit. And then there is the overarching work package about deployment and integration of decentralized systems. There we look how such new Swiss scenarios could be interconnected within the European context, but there's also very technical questions on transmission problems, grid stability, storage, and transport. And then the WP8, the important one on policy, markets, and finance, which we believe is one of the main problems that currently we are not on track there. So having this consortium in this thing, so let's take a quicker look or a more in-depth look at the pilot and demonstration projects. For the cities, we have a few cities, Bern, Lucerne, then the area Möllin-Rheinfelden, and also some urban environment in the canton of Aargau, where we try to demonstrate the different solutions in a decentralized way. For the Midlands, we are in eastern Switzerland with Waldkirch, canton of St. Gallen. I will show you a little bit of what is planned there. And for the Alps, we have two resort destinations, Magny-Verbet in the Valais and the Vosges-Graubünden. Now, with respect to how we're going to develop these scenarios, when we look at the energy mix as it is now with hydro, really a large fraction of still nuclear, and then imports and contracts, and only a small fraction of new renewables, then the question is, how will that evolve in future? And of course, also in the context of the SCCRs, people have investigated this in some depth, but if you look at it, then there are relatively a small number of scenarios, such as here, where new renewables play a major role and that lead to a situation where you go to a fully renewable Switzerland. So something has to happen there in that respect, and that we need this scenario, we need to investigate more, and this is exactly what Swedish has in mind. In addition, it's not only about making Switzerland fully renewable, but when you look at the situation, at the market situation, at the finance situation, we think it's also essential, and we have taken this up also from the wish of the Swiss Federal Office of Energy, that we would like to go local and regional in the generation process itself. If you look at the current trend, then this current trend, as I said, is not on track and will, in addition, generate quite some inequalities in how the distribution of new renewable generation happens across Switzerland. The same is true if you just do a least cost scenario for 2035. So there needs to be additional incentives such that you can go to a equal regional effort scenario in 2035. Now, let's take a quick look at how our demonstration projects would look like. This is a fairly complicated slide, and I will keep maybe this up then for if we have time in the discussion. I will not go through the details, but if you look at the Swiss Midlands, then the main input is, as shown on the left-hand side, is biomass that comes either as agricultural biomass or as waste, or there's wood. And then you can do all these technical things such that you then feed natural gas, or you feed biomethane or synthetic methane to a gas supply, or you go to the electricity world and you see the power is here in terms of current, and you can see many connections there. The nice thing about this complicated machine that you see here is that it could be even climate positive, in the sense that you can generate certified biochar that you can, for example, bury and have a net CO2 removal of the atmosphere as a result of generating enough energy, not only for the Midlands itself, but also for export to cities. This whole gets a little simpler if you look at the situation, how we want to address it in the mountains, because there we have the main generation, alpine PV and wind power, of course, next to the hydro that is already operating quite well. And we have a simpler system where we mainly generate electricity, and we have to export that electricity to the urban centers. There may be a link via electrolysis to methanization, and then to include the cement production, such that we also get to something like biomethane at the end. But these are the pilot and demonstration frameworks on which we work with. Now, what I would like you to, because this is a seminar that should trigger discussions, I would like to show you going back to Earth, or maybe not completely down to Earth, but to the mountains, and show why we think that there is potential, not only in the engineering of storage, but there's also quite a lot of potential, uncharted potential in the mountains to generate more than people have currently thought, in particular also with respect to the winter gap. And allow myself to show you an example from my own house here in Davos. That is a 12.8 kilowatt peak solar roof that you can see here on the picture. And I have a system of snow removal. I just heat the system very quickly, and then the snow slides off as an avalanche. And an example is shown here on January 20 of this year. We achieved, with a roof that has a 35-degree angle, we achieved a peak production of 11 kilowatts, which is almost impossible if you would think that the peak rating is only 12.8. So that means a lot of additional energy, much more than people would expect, comes from reflection of the snow cover, which is of course facilitated by the good location of the house in the snow environment. A first estimate over the last few years, where I have monitored the production, it suggests that on average, we can make 50% more than what you would get as an estimate from the commercial places, or the places such as a solar roof in Switzerland. So the message is there is more potential. You just need to find out how to best harvest it and to solve technical issues such as snow removal. But I want to spend a little more time, and I'm not sure how much time Thanos will still give me, but I want to also spend on the second big question, which is the wind potential in the mountains. In general, Switzerland is thought to be an unrestricted, not so interesting place for wind production. But as we all know, the mountains, they change the wind quite a bit, and in many places they reduce the wind, but in some places you can also get an increase in wind speeds through channeling, through speed up, or mountain waves. And the question then is, how do we find the best spots? And especially, for example, with respect to mountain waves, high resolution simulations, and I'm now going a little bit into the research that we are doing in our lab, would suggest that at some locations, and you can see this in this graph here, this graph shows you the horizontal wind speed that goes on a cross section that is shown here. Sorry, I think that is shown on the left here over the valley and over the ridge of the mountains. And what you can see here is that the mountain waves, they can reach down very close to the ground and lead to locally increased wind speeds. To illustrate that better, you can see down here the vertical wind speeds on the same cross section that shows you that it's indeed the mountain waves that cause that feature. So there is more potential than people would think, and certainly more potential than what the current wind atlas is giving you. And very concretely, we have been recently involved in estimating the potential for a site. So we typically would think that it's better to first see where the big potential is, and then try to find out whether you can put something there. But in practice, it's often the other way around, that people have a site and they want to know whether this is a good site or good enough. So at Lukmania Pass, there is a plan for installing small turbines at this very specific location, which is probably not the best potential location in the area. And there, what we can do there is, in terms of research, we can connect a few measurements on the site and a few simulations on the site with long-term time series of weather stations that have been operating for a long time, and then use machine learning to generate a viable distribution that is very important, as the experts under us will know, in estimating the total potential. And this does give you a different view than if you maybe have only a few years of local measurements, you can come to results that suggest that maybe there's a little bit more. That was lucky in that particular place. But the combination of existing measurements with simulations does allow you also to look at the spatial distribution and look where is the most interesting site, even within the site that has already been picked. So the general site is known, but now the question is where exactly to put the turbine. And as we all know, little differences in wind speed make a very, very big difference in the total production. And we were able to assess this with the modeling. So this is what this just gives you a little bit of hands-on experience, how we see this project evolving, where we go between the application directly in the field, back to the research question, back and forth, such that we can really get some additional installations on the ground. Of course, I've picked now this project because it's funded, but I would like to see many more of these projects coming through the community. And if you have questions, get in touch with my co-PI on the project, Evelina, or myself. And I thank you for listening, and I hope that there will be some questions and discussions.
So I am now going to move to our next speaker, and so that is Jean-Pierre Danthine, who's the managing director of the Enterprise for Society, which is E4S. And Enterprise for Society is very interesting for us, and it's very interesting to hear from his experience and what they've been able to do, because it's also an EPFL and UNIL collaboration, also around the top, so in particular on the topic of sustainability, and also with a third partner, which is IMD. And so I am really looking forward to hearing his talk. And so Jean-Pierre, if you can share your screen, if you have slides, that would be great. I think you're on mute right now. We can't hear you.
Sorry, but I could not get my microphone on while I was sharing the screen. Let me start again. You hear me now? Do you hear me now?
Now I was on mute. Yes, we can hear you.
Ah, okay.
It's typical Zoom.
We can hear you well.
Okay, very good. Is this the right screen? No, it's not the right screen. Sorry. I have to start all over again. Oh, that's because I had to quit. Why isn't it coming? Okay. Trying again. I'm trying. Here we are. I'm sorry about this.
That's
Here
great.
we are.
Thank you.
Good. So, good. Now you hear me and you see the screen.
Perfect.
Very good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is present E4S, and I'm going to do it as I do for an external audience, not specifically for an EPFL UNIL audience, but you'll see how it comes up at the end. So the first thing I say, typically when I look to it, as you say, typically I talk to potential sponsors, which is the kind of thing I'm doing at the moment. I say, okay, Houston, we have a problem. Est-ce que je parle en anglais ou en français?
C'est comme vous voulez.
OK. Alors, nous avons un problème. Nous devons apprendre à vivre dans les limites planétaires. Ça, c'est le premier problème qui est évidemment au centre de CLIMACT. Mais nous devons aussi apprendre à vivre, à prévenir les chocs systémiques globaux. Pensez Covid, c'est la problématique de la résilience. Et nous devons aussi, et c'est un troisième élément, contrer les tendances structurelles qui sont négatives et qui sapent le soutien de notre système économique et notre cohésion sociale. Il faut que nous soyons plus inclusifs. Et dans tout cela, nous avons un obstacle supplémentaire, mais peut-être aussi un allié, c'est la technologie. Donc, il faut qu'on apprenne à mieux exploiter la puissance de la technologie, malgré la méfiance croissante envers la science et la dimension disruptive et éthiquement problématique de certains développements récents. Donc, il s'agit d'être innovant. Donc, on a ces trois, je dis ça comme ça très rapidement pour dire, au fond, on a quatre dimensions, la problématique climatique, la problématique de la résilience, la problématique de l'inclusion et la problématique de la technologie. Et l'observation que nous faisons, c'est que les institutions académiques peuvent mieux assumer leurs responsabilités, veulent mieux assumer leurs responsabilités, doivent mieux assumer leurs responsabilités. Vous avez ici des images de nos trois institutions, effectivement, UNIL et EPFL, mais également l'IMD, que nous avons pu convaincre de cette nécessité, et notamment du fait que élargir la frontière des connaissances et donc affecter de manière massive la manière dont nous vivrons dans 50 ans, c'est très bien, mais il faut qu'on se préoccupe aussi de la manière dont nous allons atteindre cet horizon de 50 ans et donc, dans un certain nombre de cas, réorienter l'attention vers les problèmes d'aujourd'hui. Et pour ça, nous pouvons utiliser des compétences extraordinaires qui sont rassemblées dans la région lémanique pour guider la société dans ce moment qui est critique. Et au fond, c'est de là que EPFL est né, Université de Lausanne, IMD et EPFL, qui se rejoignent. La taille du défi le justifie, les forces sont complémentaires, le tout est plus grand que la somme des parties. Et on a décidé de le faire dans un esprit start-up, c'est-à-dire non pas en essayant de fusionner quelque chose d'existant, mais en commençant à partir de rien et en réfléchissant à comment approcher ces défis en utilisant nos compétences ou comment utiliser nos compétences pour aider à résoudre ces défis. Ça, c'est la première partie. Puis le message, ma page suivante, c'est de dire au fond, quand je m'adresse à des entreprises ou quand je m'adresse à des fondations ou quand je m'adresse à des NGOs, ici par exemple les entreprises, eh bien, ça ne peut pas être un projet strictement universitaire, un projet strictement académique, notamment les entreprises et les grandes fondations qui sont le cœur et le moteur du monde économique, elles ne peuvent pas rester au bord du chemin. Et donc, ce qu'on essaye de faire avec EPFL, c'est de créer, de générer une coalition d'acteurs. Et encore une fois, je m'adresse là, cette slide ici, c'est spécifiquement pour les entreprises, mais je dirais la même chose pour les fondations, pour le secteur public et pour les NGOs. Coalition d'acteurs parce que nous allons devant de changements radicaux et notamment avec un rôle plus marqué pour l'État et que pour arriver à ce que ce plus d'État soit un mieux d'État, il faut gérer la transition et éviter des pièges catastrophiques. Et il se fait que là, on peut réfléchir à une expérience récente qui est l'expérience de la crise financière de 2008, où la conséquence de cette crise financière a été vraiment une notion, il faut réguler, il faut mieux réguler le secteur financier. Et dans cette problématique-là, on n'a pas vraiment réussi une vraie collaboration entre le secteur public et le secteur privé. Or, et c'est ce qui a fait en gros qu'une partie de la réglementation a été proposée par le secteur public, par les régulateurs et les banques centrales, mais avec les grandes institutions financières sur la pédale des freins, donc qui n'ont pas vraiment contribué leurs idées et leur expérience pour gérer ce phénomène de réglementation. Et ça a conduit à ce que certains considèrent être des erreurs. En tout cas, cette procédure-là aurait pu être mieux guidée par les connaissances du secteur privé. Et notre argumentation ici, c'est que c'est la même chose. C'est-à-dire qu'on va passer dans une transition qui est radicale. Et cette transition, elle doit être éclairée, bien sûr, par une vision du bien commun, mais aussi par l'expérience et les compétences du secteur privé. Et puis, deuxièmement, cette transition, elle peut être modulée, complétée dans un esprit d'autoréglementation par une réforme du monde de l'entreprise. Et ça, c'est évidemment aussi au cœur de ce que nous voulons faire. On a cette notion d'entreprise à mission, corporation with purpose, qui est un ferment qui est extrêmement vivace aujourd'hui dans le secteur de l'entreprise, mais qu'il faut qu'on accompagne, qu'il faut qu'on aide et qui aussi va aider dans cette transition que nous appelons de nos voeux. Alors, la vision de Enterprise for Society, c'est de se consacrer à former la prochaine génération de dirigeants, donc un élément de formation, d'inspirer la transformation économique et sociale, c'est une activité au niveau des idées, et activer le changement en renforçant les startups et en stimulant l'innovation. C'est notre troisième pilier. Et effectivement, vous les voyez, ces trois piliers ici, donc un pilier éducation, un pilier recherche, un pilier entrepreneuriat. Pilier éducation, nous venons de lancer il y a 10 jours le Master in Sustainable Management and Technology, qui sera le premier master multi-institutionnel lancé communément par, encore une fois, l'EPFL, l'Université HEC et l'IMD, et qui se préoccupe donc de former les futurs leaders, les futurs dirigeants d'entreprise, en s'assurant qu'ils intégreront les préoccupations environnementales et sociétales dans leur modèle d'entreprise, tout en exploitant résolument les promesses des nouvelles technologies. À la partie recherche, j'en parlerai un petit peu plus en détail dans un moment. On crée un centre de compétences interdisciplinaires qui va essayer de guider, guider la transformation économique et sociale en produisant, collectant, diffusant les recherches de pointe en vue d'aider les entreprises et la société à développer des pratiques, des stratégies et des politiques compatibles avec les grands défis. Et puis, il y a un pilier d'entrepreneuriat où on cherche à activer, à renforcer un peu l'écosystème startup qui est déjà extrêmement solide et intéressant, mais dans lequel notre complémentarité entre nos trois institutions permettrait d'envisager des acquis supplémentaires. 2 mots sur le master. Master in Sustainable Management and Technology. Donc, l'objectif, c'est de former la prochaine génération d'entrepreneurs et d'intrapreneurs à mener des affaires au profit de leur organisation, de l'environnement et de la société en général. L'idée, c'est bien d'allier meilleure gouvernance économique et une technologie qui est réfléchie et innovante. Et notre programme va avoir 3 axes. L'axe technologie, où on a des interventions d'à peu près toutes les facultés de l'EPFL, et un axe fort dans le domaine de la science des données, machine learning, data sciences, etc. Un deuxième axe qui est évidemment revoir toutes les fonctions du management et de l'économie en les reconsidérant à la lumière des grands défis sociétaux. Et puis un troisième axe qui met l'accent sur ce qu'on appelle les transferable skills, qu'on apprend les étudiants à travailler en team, notamment des teams multidisciplinaires, puisque la moitié de nos étudiants auront un bachelor de type EPFL et l'autre moitié un bachelor de type HEC. Et l'idée, c'est vraiment bien de faire en sorte qu'ils apprennent à travailler ensemble, qu'ils s'enseignent, qu'ils se forment les uns et les autres et qu'ils soient équipés pour rejoindre le monde de l'entreprise, le monde de l'organisation, en étant aptes à dialoguer les uns avec les autres. Et bien sûr, dans tout cela, il y a la durabilité, la sustainabilité au sens large qui est transversale à tout le programme. Du côté de la partie du centre de recherche, du centre de compétences, notre idée est bien sûr de produire de la recherche, mais aussi de les collecter, de les diffuser. Donc, d'avoir un impact et un apport de connaissances qui peut être quasiment immédiatement utilisable, ce qui n'est pas toujours le cas dans les recherches que l'on fait en économie ou en management. Et pour cela, on veut s'appuyer sur l'extraordinaire ensemble de compétences de nos 3 institutions. Nous avons structuré notre centre de recherche autour de 3 axes, et tout ça est encore fortement en discussion, avec l'idée de créer des plateformes, et des plateformes dont une partie sont représentées par les pétales de cette fleur que vous voyez ici à la droite de l'écran, qui représente un peu l'environnement mondial. L'environnement mondial au sens strict, quand on parle de prospering within the planet limits, ou l'environnement mondial au sens plus traditionnellement économique quand on parle de globalisation. Je reviens là-dessus dans un moment. Deuxièmement, il y a la problématique des secteurs clés, qui est représenté dans les phases, les côtés du pentagone que vous avez ici. Et le 3e niveau d'organisation, c'est les opérations, c'est-à-dire l'intérieur des organisations, où on va parler du travail, des données, etc. Ici, vous voyez ça en plus grand. Donc, l'environnement global, prospering within the planet limit, la globalisation, les problèmes macroéconomiques, les problèmes de digital currency, les problèmes de dette, l'acceptabilité des technologies, les corporate legitimacy, donc la notion de l'évolution de l'entreprise, de la gouvernance de l'entreprise et de ses comportements, la problématique des consommations, de la consommation, changing consumer behavior, et toute la problématique, tout ce qui est les alliances public-private. Au niveau des secteurs, nutrition and agriculture, health and life sciences, Energy, on est en lien là avec ce qui a été dit précédemment, Mobility in the Future of Cities, Digital Networks and Platforms, et au centre, le travail, les données, les indicateurs, le manufacturing, la finance et les risques systémiques, les primary resources, c'est la notion d'économie circulaire et les sharing practices. Donc voilà un peu comment nous organisons notre réflexion. Alors aujourd'hui, il y a 9 plateformes qui ont été lancées. Là, il y en avait 19, donc il y en a encore qui sont en création, qui demandent bien sûr qu'on identifie les compétences, qu'on mette ensemble des équipes, si possible, des 3 institutions, en tout cas de 2 institutions, et dans un certain nombre de choses qu'on obtienne les financements pour mobiliser ces équipes, puisque nous sommes partis avec un financement de start-up des 3 institutions, mais qui ne suffit pas évidemment pour satisfaire l'ensemble de ces ambitions. Dernier pilier, Activate Change, c'est le pilier écosystème, c'est le pilier innovation. Nous sommes là plutôt encore en discussion, en échange avec les très nombreux acteurs du domaine, donc je ne vais pas en parler plus avant. Je termine dans les temps, j'espère, en disant, voilà, mais c'est quoi E4S and CLIMACT? Qu'est-ce qu'on pourrait faire ensemble ou quelle est la différence? Comme j'ai dit, c'est vraiment, on a le même DNA, on a le même ADN, c'est vraiment la problématique sociétale qui nous bouge, qui nous move, qui nous fait bouger et dans une perspective d'alliance interinstitutionnelle et de collaboration interdisciplinaire. On est donc des jumeaux, mais on n'est pas des identical twins. Alors, c'est quoi la différence entre ces 2 jumeaux? Cette E4S, c'est évidemment s'engage sur le secteur économique. Ce qu'on veut faire, c'est guider la transition vers la nouvelle économie, vers une nouvelle économie qui respecte les limites planétaires. Et donc, dans ce sens-là, bien sûr, on est très, très proche on a le focus sur l'économie, mais on est très proche des préoccupations de CLIMACT. Par contre, on a aussi ces préoccupations de résilience, de risques systémiques, aux risques systémiques et de la design, de la transition vers une économie plus inclusive, qui sont des préoccupations pratiquement économiques et sociales. Donc, focus sur l'économie et sur la responsabilité des acteurs de l'économie dans un esprit très interdisciplinaire. Donc, pas des identical twins, mais beaucoup de possibilités de partenariat, notamment, je dirais, dans tout ce qui touche, bien sûr, les activités de CLIMACT en matière de recherche et d'activité dès lors qu'on intervient sur le domaine économique, le domaine soit de l'économie politique, soit du management. Et inversement, chaque fois que E4S, dans ses activités de recherche et d'activités plus généralement de outreach, par exemple, intervient sur des domaines focalisés sur le changement climatique et a besoin et peut bénéficier d'input et de compétences de disciplines scientifiques qui sont autres que celles qui sont notre cœur de business, l'économie et le management. Voilà.